Three. Welcome to Paint Yourself into the Picture, healing conversations to help us create the best picture of our lives. I'm Reba, best-selling author, life coach, and founder of A to Z Healing Space. It is awesome to be with you here today. My guest today is Debbra Lupien, aka the Answer Diva. She's an Akashic Records expert who helps women discover their power, unleash their potential, and skyrocket their happiness and success. Welcome, Debbra.
Thank you, Reba. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. Full disclosure, I did an Akashic record reading with Debbra, meaning she did one for me. And it was wonderful and beautiful, and it resonated, and it left me so curious about how it all works. So let's start at the beginning. And Debbra, can you just explain to the viewers what are the Akashic Records?
Sure. The Akashic Records, I like to call them the missing manual to you, because you know how if you buy an appliance or a car, anything, you get a manual with it, but we didn't come with a manual. And then lo and behold, it turns out we did, but we just didn't know about it. So if you know Edgar Cayce was reading the Akashic Records, but in his time, consciousness was at a different level, and so they weren't readily accessible to the average person the way they are today. So as the cosmos has shifted and our consciousness has shifted, they are now more easily available, and I can simply go into a meditative state and access records. So all the information about your soul is archived there. And it's like this energetic thing somewhere. I don't know where it is. Some people think it's in us. Some people think it's out there. Wherever it is, it doesn't matter. We can access it. And it is truly our missing manual. So all the questions we have about ourselves are there.
Okay, but I'm still stumped. How do you find yourself there? Because I've been meditating for over 30 years now, but I have never found myself in front of a big book and looking up answers the way I imagine sometimes the Akashic Records might be. How do you get there?
I go into a meditative state and I ground myself. I consciously ask for access to the records. I do a little prayer ritual. And at that point, I just open myself up and wait to see what comes. And usually for me, it's very visual because that's how my gift works. So for me, it's like seeing a movie. In the beginning, when I went there, I did see a library. And it was kind of like the New York Public Library, you know, that vast library with all the shelves and the card catalogs. And then as I went more often, then they shifted and there was a help desk with a computer. So they were upgrading. And now when I go in more frequently, it's just I go into a scene. It might be a pastoral scene. It might be mountains. Sometimes it's water. And whatever it is important to the message because it's very symbolic. So for my experience of the records, it's kind of like seeing a movie. And so I'm just describing what's coming through. And then there will be usually a message, a verbal message that comes to complement.
In the beginning, it was like you were walking to the library or walking into the movie theater. But now you just drop in on a scene and you know you're there. You don't need that little introductory, like I'm going to the movies now. You're just right into the scene.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll go in and I'll see a door. You know, very often if it's the first time I've read for somebody, I will see the door to their records. And that's usually important because the door will have a certain texture and a color and the ornaments on the door. All of those things are important. And so we record all of those details so that we can then later look up the symbolism. And it's kind of like a puzzle. And you're putting all these pieces together to get the fullness of the message.
Right.
Does that make sense?
But how did you know that you're an Akashic Records reader? Why? There's so many healing modalities, obviously.
Yes.
Now you can drop into the Akashic Records for anyone, not just for yourself. You can, like you did for me. How did you know that this was your calling?
Well, when I started out, I had this horse that had a lot of trouble. And she was going to kill me if I didn't do something. And so I went and I took this animal communication course. And that opened up my latent psychic abilities that I had as a child, but I'd forgotten about, totally gone. And all of a sudden, I found I could very easily slip into this state and communicate with the animals. And
Wow.
so, being a curious and analytic person, I decided, well, if I could talk to dead animals, I could talk to dead people. So I did some mediumship, and then I moved on and I did some channeling. And, all of those things were interesting and fulfilling, but they weren't quite right. And I was still seeking something. And I came across the Akashic Records because it was meant to be. And I said, okay, I'll try this. And went in and just immediately started having these experiences. And it was like I came home. It just felt so right. And I knew it locked. This is my sole purpose, to read the Akashic Records.
Wow. So tell me what that was like, that first time that you discovered the Akashic Records, and what about it kind of clicked for you?
The information that came through, I just felt the truth of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was channeling and when I was doing animal communication, I had all these doubts. And I questioned what I was receiving, and I wasn't sure what I should share with people, because some of it you wonder if you're crazy, some of the things that come through. But with the Akashic Records, there was just this truth attached to it. It just felt so authentic. And it just, in my soul, it was right.
Yeah.
It literally felt like coming home.
That's wonderful. I'm so fascinated by it, I guess because I've never done it. So it seems so mysterious to me. The Akashic Records, the name itself is so evocative. So I believe in the philosophy of that our challenges are really gifts and opportunities in disguise.
Yes.
And sometimes those gifts are very well disguised. And it's really hard to see the opportunity. So share with us a little bit about how can the Akashic Records help. Let's say you're in a relationship that's challenging, and we all have them. It's whether it's a child or a sibling, a parent, a teacher, a co-worker. How can the Akashic Records help with a situation like that?
Well, what I would do is I would go into the person's record and I would ask the question, what can you tell us about this relationship? Now, if you believe in reincarnation, and obviously I do, because the Akashic Records are a lot about our past lives, then very often what will happen is they will reveal to me that there was a past connection between these souls. They'll give me enough of the picture of what happened to help, but it's not like past life regression where you're going for all the detail. We just want enough information to help us today, because we don't want to get stuck in the past, right? We're all about moving forward. But very often what's happened in these interdynamics in past lives, they're still reverberating in our lives today and probably showing up as repeating patterns. So we look to find out, where's the core? What happened? What was the catalyst? And once we understand that, then we can do an energetic clearing and with intention move forward and set that aside. Now, of course, you're not going to change the other person, but you are going to change the energetic dynamic between the people. And so there's that opportunity for healing and to move forward.
Wonderful. Can you give an example of maybe how this has worked out for a client or two? Do you have any great stories about someone for whom this has made a really significant difference in their life?
I do, so many. I guess probably the most dramatic one. I was talking to this lady, and before I even looked at her record, I'm getting this feeling that there's some real self-esteem issues. And so I asked her if that was an issue, and she's like, no, I'm fine. But the records don't lie. So I go in, and the first thing I see is this child who's, she's young, she's maybe 5 or 6 years old, and she's on the floor, kind of in a fetal position. She's like this. And there's this adult woman standing over her, viciously stabbing her with a knife over and over and over. And I mean, it was a visceral image, and I could feel it. And as I'm describing it to her, she starts crying and she says, that's my mother. And it turns out that in a past life, they had been rivals for this man, and it was very dramatic, and there was death involved, there was suicide involved, and just a lot of bad feelings. And so what happened is this woman had chosen to incarnate as the daughter of the woman who had previously been her sister so they could work out the karma. But mom wasn't interested in working out the karma. In fact, mom was so vicious that she treated the other children normally. But this one, anything she could do to torment her, she did, including once she was married, she broke up the marriage.
Mm.
She got involved in, a lot of nasty stuff, but,
Wow.
and it just never made any sense to her. Why? Why does she save all this for me and treats my siblings with loving kindness? And so once we understood that there was this old dynamic story still being played out, she was able then to, in her heart, let that go and to step aside. And they probably will never have a great relationship because mom doesn't want to change. But at least now she has the understanding. It's not her personally. It's something old that mom's hanging on to. So she can put that aside and move forward.
Wow.
And that is healing.
I mean, that really begs me to ask you, it's not directly related to Akashic Records, but I do see the value of understanding something like that. But on a deep way, how did she process forgiving someone who had truly harmed her so much? And it's not Akashic Records, but how do you utilize it? I do think that the knowledge itself is a form of healing and is a form of liberation, but yet we still need to work, I think, with some of the emotional. So how do you suggest kind of incorporating what you learn in this huge way, like this woman obviously was able to do?
With that understanding, now her energy has shifted and her perception of the relationship has shifted. And she's obviously aware that they're probably never going to have a close mother-daughter relationship. But now she knows where it comes from. Yeah. And when you don't know where it comes from, it kind of haunts you because you're always involved in that dynamic of trying to figure out why. What is this all about?
That's the self-esteem thing right there. Why me? Why not me? Yeah.
So now she understands it's nothing she did, that she actually had good intentions at incarnating into this family to resolve it. So for her, that allowed her just to release. She could let the dynamic go. She could still see her mother if she chooses to or not. It's really up to her. Yeah. And, she gets to control. It's up to her now. So I think that's the biggest thing. It frees you up to take back control, to make the choices that are going to empower you.
Yes. And can you share with the viewers, I get that she recognized that it was her mother. Can you share a little bit with the viewers, just explain how did that recognition happen? Because obviously you didn't tell her, and this is your mother. She said, that's my mother. So how do you think that happened?
Yeah, I didn't know who it was. I just described to her what I was seeing.
Yes.
And just the dynamic that was going on. It just clicked for her. She knew immediately. And I think that's because her guides knew she would understand, and that's why they gave me that particular vision. They always will give something that either validates or is meaningful for the recipient, because otherwise what would be the point? So they're very good. They know, you have your own personal guide team and they know you intimately. Yeah. And they know exactly what to say to you to make the most impact and to help you understand.
Yeah, I remember when you did my reading, the image of the book and sort of the leather that being almost inside the book that you found with me was unique to me, because you said you hadn't seen that before. So yeah, it was something unique to me, which was fascinating. I just love stories and I love understanding humankind. So if you have another story that you'd like to share, I just want to invite you to do it, because I love telling stories and I love hearing stories, and I think my viewers do too. So go for it if you have another one that you can share.
Yeah, I had one recently that really touched my heart. This lady has another mother-daughter dynamic going on, but in fact for her it was even worse. As a child, she remembers both of her parents taunting her about her weight. In fact, they would do that fatty 2x4 thing with her. And she has terrible self-esteem, and she's this warm, loving healer. And it's just a crime. It tears at your heart that she's carrying around that. but it was just woven into her being from such a young age. And so when we went back and we looked to what was going on, and we found that, again, there's some old issues that need to be resolved. And her mother has since passed on. And she senses her mother's presence around her all the time. And she keeps saying, Mom, it's okay. I forgive you. You can go. And yeah, I know, right? So what came through? It's not about Mom forgiving you. She doesn't need your forgiveness. She's in spirit. She's past that. What she wants to do is to help you heal. Mm-hmm. Now she has a different perspective of what happened. She did the best she could. It wasn't great. You're still living with it. But she wants you to understand that that was wrong, and she's here to help you heal. And once you get that message, then you can dismiss her and she'll go away. So she had it totally wrong about what was going on. And it was like, oh my gosh, now I see. And thank you, Mom. I appreciate that you're giving this to me now. So that was healing for her, that Mom finally was coming and giving her that love to help her heal.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think just knowing that can really change your life. Knowing that parent that was harsh now understands your point of view better. That's huge. Yes. That's the forgiveness that that's the validation that a lot of people seek from their parents. It is interesting how many people have difficult parents.
Yes.
Which brings me to another question, which is,
okay.
If you'd like to share with us a little bit of your journey and how, it's not that usual of a career choice to say, doctor, lawyer, Akashic Records reader. I'm going to be an Akashic Records reader. So how did you come to this? And how did you find the courage to let your voice free?
It was a long journey. And now in retrospect, when I look back, I can see the breadcrumbs that my guides were dropping all along the way that led me to this, including finding this horse on the internet who was my black beauty. She was my dream horse. And I went clear across the state. I flew out to meet this horse. And who does that, right? And I buy this horse, and she's not trained. She's only halter broke. And then she's got all these issues. And I had to get, the communication, which opened the door for the psychic ability. And at that point in time, I was building databases. So I was data mining for people, for clients. I was helping them to get their information, right? And so it's kind of a perfect symmetry, because now I'm data mining the Akashic Records for people to help them in another way.
That's so
Isn't
funny.
it? Yeah, it's really beautiful how it all works out.
I think more resonances in the next follow-up question, which is, tell us a little bit about the horse's issues.
Well, the horse, that was amazing. I got her when she was 3 years old from the breeder. So she's on the farm where she was born. She's with her family.
Yeah.
And when I did this communication course, the class decided we would take her on as a project because she was so difficult and she had so many issues. And so we all together communicated with her to find out what was going on. Wow. And from her perspective, she was furious. I took her away from her home. I didn't ask her. I put her in this situation that was not a positive situation in her opinion, because I was living in Brooklyn. And the stable in Brooklyn is kind of like a slum of a stable. I did the best I could for her, but there was no turnout. So I had to take her for a 3-mile walk every day until I trained her to ride. So we would walk together every day. And she was in a lot of physical pain because they never taught her to trail load, right? The day that the guy shows up to haul her to me in Brooklyn.
So what's trail load mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. To get into a trailer.
Oh, okay.
Which, if you're going to sell a horse, they're going to need to get on a trailer to get hauled to wherever they're going to live.
Oh, so did she get up in the process or something?
Yeah, and it's relatively easy if you do it when they're young. I mean, they taught her some other things, and they were so proud of what they had taught her and desensitized her, but I guess it didn't occur to them that one day she'd have to get on a trailer. So this guy shows up to get her, and she's one of these horses who's very opinionated and will not be forced. You have to persuade her that it's the right thing for her. And so they did everything they could to shove her in that trailer. They put the rope around her behind. They tried to drag her in. They finally did shove her in there. And at that point, she tried to tear the trailer apart. She just, had a fit. And in all of that process, what had happened is they knocked her pelvis out of alignment. And so she had a lot of joints and ligaments and things that were just out of place.
Wow.
And I didn't know this. I had no experience with that. And so she comes to me, and now she's in physical pain. She's afraid because she's just been transported overnight for many hours to this strange place. And she's in Brooklyn, for crying out loud, with all the noise and, so it was a real difficult transition for her, and I didn't know how to deal with all of these things. So I had to go out and take all these courses to learn how to help her. And eventually we did get her some relief, and I learned how to have more of a conversation with her so I could help her. And finally, she just wanted to know that I wasn't going to get rid of her, that she would stay with me for a long time. And so I made that promise to her, and I still have her.
Oh, so she adjusted. She let go of the anger and.
She did. It was a long time in coming. I mean, she really was trying to kill me. She was rearing and striking me with her hoof and
Wow.
kicking and biting and, all kinds of things just to let me know how upset she was. But yeah, once we had that breakthrough where she finally felt like I was speaking her language, it all changed, and it changed very rapidly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. She was your, like what did you call it? It's like your Excalibur. It
was the catalyst.
Yeah.
She started the whole thing. Yeah.
So your work is so fascinating and so beautiful, and obviously it has done so much for you and for so many of your clients. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to schedule an Akashic record reading? Is that what you do mainly, is just do the one-on-one Akashic record reading? Is that your main?
Yeah, I do a lot, but I'm also working with groups where I'm channeling live messages for them. That's something new that I've just started. So I'm doing that in small groups, and I will be expanding to larger groups. So if you're familiar with Esther Hickson Abraham, she's channeling Abraham.
Yes.
What I'm doing is I'm channeling your personal guide team. So you can ask a question and I'll channel their answer to you. But yeah, they can go to my website. It's akashaunleashed.com. And on the front page, there's actually a free offer, because I firmly believe that everybody needs to know what their gift is. And so what I do is I'll spend about 20 minutes with them. I'll look up their gift and I'll share with them. This is how your soul is wired.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What a beautiful offer, because everybody's like, what is my purpose? What is, that's huge. And you'll take 20 minutes and get it done. I love it.
Yes. Because just knowing that changes your entire outlook on life. You have such a deeper understanding of who you are and how you can interact with the rest of the world in an empowered fashion.
Yes, absolutely. That is brilliant. So I will put your website in the notes below this video, Akasha Unleashed, I believe it was. And thank you, Deborah, for being our guest on the show.
You are so welcome. It was a pleasure.
It was. And my darling viewers, thank you for watching. It's great to be with you for another episode. I'm Reba Linker. My website is rebalinker.com. I have a Facebook group called Leaders in Self-Love. And I invite you to explore our new online community at A2ZHealingSpace.com. Thank you for your subscribes and likes, and I love reading your comments. So please comment below. What do you like? What do you want more of? Just share your thoughts on what you just heard. I'd really appreciate that. And join us again next week for another healing conversation. Until then, remember, every obstacle is a doorway. You'll just need to look for the opening. Many blessings.